If your last name is on this list, your ancestor didn't just live through the Norman Conquest, they may have fought in it, or served the men who did. These 10 surnames appear in the Domesday Book, the Great Survey of 1086, and in the chronicles written within living memory of the Battle of Hastings. Most families who carry them today have no idea what they once meant, or how far the bloodline really goes. Stay until number 1, because that surname put a king on a throne. And historians only piece together the real chain of events in the last few decades. Today, it sounds like Jane Austen's most famous romantic hero. But Darcy comes from the village of Arcy in Normandy. The real founder was Norman Darcy, documented in the Domesday Book of 1086, holding some 30 manors in Lincolnshire, seated at Nocton. In 1537, Thomas Darcy, Baron Darcy de Darcy, was beheaded on Tower Hill for surrendering Pontefract Castle to the rebels of the Pilgrimage of Grace. Here's the twist almost nobody mentions in Ireland. Many Darcys of Galway were originally the Gaelic O'Doherty family, who adopted the Norman spelling because it carried prestige. Same name, 2 completely different bloodlines. If your name is Darcy, your ancestor may be Norman nobility or a Gaelic family that simply borrowed the prestige. The next name was a huntsman who ended up owning half of Mayfair. Number 9, Grosvenor. In Norman French, le Grosvenor, the chief huntsman. Family tradition holds the first Grosvenor served as huntsman to Hugh Lupus, the Conqueror's nephew and Earl of Chester. Fair to say that origin rests on tradition, not surviving parchment. What IS documented is remarkable enough. Between 1385 and 1390, Sir Robert Grosvenor fought one of the longest heraldic lawsuits in English history, Scrope versus Grosvenor, over who owned a coat of arms. Grosvenor lost the case. The family recovered rather well. Descendants became the Dukes of Westminster, owners of Mayfair and Belgravia in central London, one of the largest aristocratic fortunes in Britain today. If your name is Grosvenor, your ancestor may have chased deer for a Norman earl. His descendants now own a chunk of London. The next name has rare paperwork. Most surnames on this list don't get. Number 8, Warenne. One of the most common surnames in America, and this one comes with real documentation. William de Warenne, from the hamlet of Warenne in Normandy, is one of roughly 15 men whom contemporary chroniclers, writing within living memory, actually place at Hastings itself, a short, exclusive list. He did well lands in 13 counties, Lewes Castle in Sussex, Castle Acre in Norfolk, and in 1088 the title Earl of Surrey. He died that same year from a crossbow wound at the Siege of Pevensey. Honest Caution, the name, also arose independently from people who lived near a warren, a rabbit enclosure. Some warrens descend from the Earl, many descend from rabbit keepers. Both are fine ancestors, only one carried a sword at Hastings. The next name, the legend gets it wrong, and the truth is better. Number 7, Montgomery. Roger de Montgomery, Lord of Saint-Foy de Montgomery in Normandy, was one of William's closest advisors. Later chroniclers put him at Hastings, but most historians disagree, because contemporary sources say Roger stayed behind to help govern Normandy during the invasion. He crossed in 1067 instead, and William paid him anyway the earldom of Shrewsbury and a swath of the Welsh border, where the town of Montgomery still carries his name. The name traveled north too. A branch settled at Eaglesham in Scotland became the Earls of Eglinton and fed the great Scots-Irish migration to Ulster, then to Appalachia. That's why Montgomery is everywhere, from Alabama to the Appalachians. Quick pause if your surname already showed up. Drop it in the comments. That's where the family stories live. And if you want the deep dive on any one of these families, subscribe. Those breakdowns are coming. 6 names left. And they include a kingmaker, a queen's lover, and a king. Number 6, Sinclair, originally de Sancto Claro, from Sinclair in Normandy. The Sinclairs came north with Norman families invited into Scotland by King David I in the early 1100s, rising to become Earls of Orkney and Caithness in the 1440s. William Sinclair began building Roslin Chapel outside Edinburgh, the carved stone riddle that's fueled speculation ever since. And no, the legend that Henry Sinclair reached America before Columbus won't be repeated here as fact. Historians have found no credible evidence. The documented story needs no padding. Sinclairs and St. Clairs fill the records of Scotland, Ulster, and the American South, and the record stretches back to Normandy. The next name produced the most scandalous man of the English Middle Ages. Number 5, Mortimer. From Mortimer in Normandy. Ralph de Mortimer appears in Domesday holding Wigmore Castle on the Welsh border. And for 2 centuries, the Mortimers ruled those marches like private kings. Then Roger Mortimer, 1st Earl of March, escaped the Tower of London in 1323, fled to Paris, and became the lover of Queen Isabella, wife of King Edward II. Together they invaded England in 1326, forced the king off his throne, and ruled the country for 3 years. In 1330, the young Edward III seized Mortimer at Nottingham Castle and had him hanged at Tyburn. And somehow the family still won a Mortimer granddaughter's bloodline, gave King Edward his claim to the crown. Every Mortimer carries the name of the man who stole a kingdom and nearly kept it. The next name hides a secret its own family probably never mentions. Number 4, Neville. The great rivals of the Percys in the North family of Warwick the Kingmaker, Richard Neville, who put 2 different kings on the throne before dying at the Battle of Barnet in 1471. Also the family of Cecily Neville, mother of both Edward IV and Richard III. The surname is Norman, from Neuville in France. But here's the twist, other videos never mention the Nevilles of Raby Castle weren't Norman in the male line at all. They descended from Uhtred, an Anglo-Saxon lord of Northumbria. Around 1200, Robert Fitzmaldred of that native line married Isabel de Neville, a Norman heiress, and their son took her surname, because Norman names carried status. The most feared Norman name in the north actually hides English blood underneath. The next name is the smallest on this list, and in one sense, the strongest. Number 3, Carew. Genealogists who study Norman descents, including researcher Anthony Camp, have concluded that only a handful of families in Britain can document an unbroken male line back to the generation of the conquest. Carew is one of them, alongside Gresley, Shirley, St. John, and Wriothesley. The Carews descend from Gerald of Windsor, the Norman castellan of Pembroke in Wales around 1100, and his wife, the Welsh Princess Nest, famed as the most beautiful woman in Wales. Descendants took the name from Carew Castle in Pembrokeshire, which still stands. The family later spread through Ireland and to colonial Virginia and the Carolinas. If your surname is Carew, you hold something almost nobody else on this list can claim, an actual documented paper trail into the Norman world. The next name built a castle that later played Hogwarts. Number 2, Percy. The Great House of the North. William de Percy arrived within a year of the conquest, and by 1086 the Domesday Book records him holding vast estates across Yorkshire. Descendants took Alnwick Castle in Northumberland in 1309 and never let go. The current Duke of Northumberland lives there today. And you've seen the castle yourself. It played Hogwarts in the Harry Potter films. The most famous Percy was Sir Henry Percy, called Hotspur for the speed of his raids against the Scots. He rebelled against Henry IV and died at the Battle of Shrewsbury in 1403, an arrow through his skull the moment he lifted his visor. One caution: the original male line ended in the 1100s, and the name passed through the heiress Agnes de Percy to her husband's sons. The blood continued through her. The Percys would tell you that counts, and 8 centuries of history agrees. And now, number 1. Number 1. Bruce. The only surname on this list that put a king on a throne. The family came from Brix in the Cotentin Peninsula of Normandy, spelled de Bruce in the old records. One correction first, because the legend sellers always skip it. No Bruce fought at Hastings. The first Robert de Bruce arrived a generation later in the service of King Henry I. And around 1124, his friend King David of Scotland granted him the lordship of Annandale. Here's the secret, confirmed by generations of genealogical record tracing, not legend 7 Roberts later. On June 24, 1314, Robert the Bruce, King of Scots, destroyed the English army at Bannockburn and secured Scotland's independence. His descendants scattered the name through Scotland and Ulster, and the Scots-Irish carried it into Virginia, the Carolinas, Tennessee, and Kentucky. If your name is Bruce anywhere in the American South, the trail behind you runs from a hollow in Appalachia back through Bannockburn to a stone manor in Normandy. That's 900 years in one word. So, what does it actually mean if your surname made this list? A hillside near Hastings at dusk, a broken shield wall, a duke counting out England to his followers. Except now you know the honest version of what came after. The Battle Abbey Row can't prove your ancestor was there. Monks padded it for money. A Norman surname can't prove it either. Surnames formed 200 years later. Tenants, servants, and whole villages took the names of the lords they served. What a name like Percy, Mortimer, or Bruce gives you is a clue, a starting point, a thread. The real test is documented medieval genealogy parish registers back to 1538, then manor rolls, heralds' visitations, inquisitions, the kind of documentation the Carews, Gresleys, Shirleys, St. Johns, and Wriothesleys actually possess. Most of us will never get that far back, but every one of these 10 names is a genuine door into that world. Was your surname on this list? Tell the story in the comments where it came from, where your family landed, what the records say other viewers with your name are reading. And if a friend carries one of these 10 surnames, send them this. They deserve to know what might be in their blood.